Are you thinking about moving to Sarasota or Lakewood Ranch? Well, today we are going to dive into the most asked questions about moving to Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch. Sydney and I are going to answer the most popular questions that we get. So let's talk about moving to Sarasota. But first, if we've not met yet, I'm Lisa McBride.
And I'm Sydney Davis.
And we are Sarasota neighborhood experts. And we love hearing from so many of you and helping so many of you buy, sell here in the Sarasota Lakewood Ranch area. So give us a call today. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave your comments and leave your questions in the remarks section below because we love to answer all of your questions. So let's get right into what everyone wants to know about moving to Sarasota. So Sydney, what are some of the questions that clients ask you regularly?
Oh, I get asked a lot about insurance.
Oh, that is a big question in Florida because most people think insurance costs are going to be really, really high here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's not always the case. So first and foremost, please know that if you live in Sarasota or Manatee County, people ask us this question about hurricane insurance. And I want to clear this up. We don't actually have a hurricane policy in Florida. We have wind that is part of our standard policy. And then if you're on a flood zone or coastal, flood insurance is required. However, it's not required for everyone and it is not necessary. And insurance costs vary so greatly. The closer you are to the water, the older your home is. There's so many factors in the home that change the cost of insurance. I'll tell you, the newer the home or the newer the roof, the lesser the cost for insurance. And this is another question that we get a lot is like, do I need a flood insurance if I'm not in a flood zone? And I tell people, you do not need to pay for flood insurance if you are not in a flood zone. However, I have found in the last year or two, more and more of our clients are adding a flood policy just for that security. However, if you're not in a flood zone and you choose to add a flood policy, it's very reasonable, like $500–600 a year. So really good cost. Another question that I get asked though, Sydney, is how do you meet your friends and get connected when you first move to this area?
Well, luckily in Sarasota, there's so many different activities and groups to get involved in. You know, there's a running club, a pickleball club, tennis club. So it's really easy to find a group that you like or something that you like and have a group to get involved in.
Also, I have found like there's a lot of meetups and Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you can find your tribe very easily in Florida. First of all, so many people are not from here. When you say that's the case,
Yeah.
But people are from everywhere moving here and they're really seeking out friendship just like you are. So whatever your interest, whether that's gardening, knitting, sports, biking, like you said,
There's a club for everyone.
yeah, great. So another question that we get asked all the time, should you live downtown or should you live in the suburbs? And that's a big one too, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really preference. You know, downtown is beautiful, close to the water, but it is older, you know, so you have to think about that as well.
And it's a little bit more costly too.
Yeah,
And there's a little bit more traffic.
a lot more traffic.
So even though our downtown is definitely the heart of the city, it's along the Sarasota Bayfront. We have the beautiful boats and water and theater, so much downtown that you really have to weigh the cost of being downtown versus the cost of being 20 or 30 minutes inland. And that's gonna take into consideration not just the cost of the home, but the cost of your insurance as well.
Yeah.
And you say, and so talk to us a little bit about traffic since we brought it up.
Traffic during off-season is very mild. You know, it's from Lakewood Ranch, if you're trying to get to the beaches, it's about 20 minutes. Now during season, however, we have a lot of traffic here.
Yeah. And I have found there's a lot of alternative routes to get from point A to point B. It really depends on if the interstates get backed up. And of course, during rush hour, a little bit trickier.
Yeah.
But it's nothing like traffic in Atlanta or LA.
Yeah.
So I think it's all perspective. You just have to get used to it and figure out when to go to places that you want to be at.
Exactly.
Okay. So this is another question that everyone wants to know, and that is about our new construction, because if you look around, there's so much construction here, but most of that construction is out east, correct?
Yes, correct. Other than the downtown area, which will always have new buildings going up, but otherwise it's really more out east. I agree.
Mm-hmm. And then do you have a favorite builder or location?
Oh, I think my favorite builder might be Neil Homes. They just make a good quality home. You can always count on Neil Homes, I feel like. And location-wise, I don't know if I have a specific location. However, Seaflower is the newest location in Bradenton, close to Amory Island, and that one is beautiful. That will be a beautiful, beautiful area.
Yeah, I agree. And thanks for mentioning Seaflower, because I kind of forgot. Where there's so much new construction, I forget about all of them. Because one thing people ask us also is, should I live in Bradenton, Lakewood Ranch, Sarasota, or Venice? And guys, you really have to visit and feel each one of these cities, what they offer, the size, the community.
Really what speaks to you about each community, because it's different for everyone.
I agree. So what are some other questions that you have been asked about recently that you can think of?
I feel like I get asked about alligators a lot. Recently I got asked why we enclose our pools. And a lot of people might think it's bugs. Yes, that does. We do have bugs here, but alligators are also a reason.
Yeah.
Everyone asks, what do we do if we see an alligator? You probably will. Any fresh body of water will most likely have an alligator in it, but if you just leave them alone, they'll leave you alone.
Yeah, and just don't feed the alligators. Yeah. That's like the #1 rule of thumb here in Florida for sure, is just don't feed the alligators. They'll go back in the water.
Yeah.
And just be cautious around any fresh body of water.
Yeah.
Right?
Agreed. What are some other questions that you've been asked?
Let's see, taxes. Okay, this is a big thing right now in Florida, because there's a lot out there right now that Governor DeSantis is trying to eliminate property taxes. And so I'm here, I just read the latest information, and yes, eliminating property taxes or reducing property taxes will be on the 2026 ballot next year. Now keep in mind, whatever the Florida legislation puts out there will have to be approved by 60% of voters. So I don't foresee we are going to 100% eliminate taxes, because it's $55 billion in revenue and it's really hard to make up. However, some of the things that I've seen that I'm in favor of is that after the age of 65, you may not have to pay that school tax on your property taxes, or we may be able to have a larger deduction for homestead properties. So we are working diligently here in Florida to reduce the cost of taxes.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So we're talking about all these questions, but people also want to know the negatives.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
What would you say are some of the negatives of living here in Florida? Sydney's been here a few years now, so we feel like we really adapted to Florida life. I love it. I'm not going anywhere, but it's not for everyone. And there is some adjustments that we've made.
Definitely. I feel like living in Florida, you're always on a vacation. And that might sound like a good thing, but sometimes it is hard to get a routine in when you always feel like you're on vacation. It's beautiful and sunny and gorgeous out. So it's hard to do things sometimes because you just want to be outside all the time. So it's hard to make a routine, I feel like, in that first year of living in Florida.
That's a very good point. And what did you think about the heat?
Well, it's hot. It is hot outside, but I much rather the heat than the cold. So
very much. So,
yeah.
And just now we're at the end of hurricane season, but Sydney, have you been through a hurricane?
Oh yes, I've been through multiple hurricanes here and other places on the East Coast, but you know, they're not all every year. You know, we haven't had any this year. And granted, we had 3 last year, but you get through them. And luckily with Sarasota, everyone gets to work right away after a hurricane. Like, it's a lot of camaraderie.
There is a lot of camaraderie and neighborly. Everybody chips in.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to work, and it is obviously, hurricanes are devastating, but the storm surge is the most devastating part of it. So unless you're on our barrier islands, yes, you could have some damage, but it's usually not as bad because it's the storm surge. So there's a lot to know when it comes to hurricanes, just like there's a lot to know when it comes to insurance.
Yes. Lori, what do you think about the cost of living here in Florida?
Okay, well, Florida is definitely not the most economical state all the times, specifically when it comes to housing costs, and specifically here in Sarasota and Manatee County. For instance, the average price of a home here in Sarasota, Manatee County currently is $570,000, and that's really just a basic starter home in many ways. And don't get me wrong, yes, we have homes that are $300,000 and $400,000, but they're either going to be older homes that probably need some updating, quite honestly, or they're going to be that starter builder that is just kind of putting it up, not the best quality build job. So our average price of homes are definitely larger. And as you get into our newer developments, such as the Lakewood Ranch area, the costs are even higher. And if you're going to be close to downtowns, and we hear this a lot about walkability. So we hear about walkability all the time because people would love to be able to just walk downtown and walk to the bayfront.
Not so easy.
No, it's not so easy unless you're spending really $1 million more.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, or an older home
That might need a lot of work or higher insurance.
Yeah, so there's definitely some pros and cons to that. But my overall take, yes, we are a little bit more expensive for sure when it comes to cost of living in homes. But like Sydney said earlier, we live in paradise. We live where people vacation, and you can't have one without the other, unfortunately.
Correct.
So.
I know another question that we get asked all the time. HOA fee.
Oh.
Speaking of cost of living.
Yes.
Dive into that.
Yes. We have plenty of neighborhoods that are older that do not have HOA fees or low HOA fees. However, 67% of all of our neighborhoods and all of our condo buildings and all of our villas will have HOA fees. The past 2 years, I will say the cost of HOA fees has risen greatly, and part of that is due to just the overall cost of living, the cost of insurance, the cost of maintenance, the upkeep cost. Everything has increased. So HOA fees for a single family home, depending on your amenities, are going to be probably between $350 and $400. And then if you have great amenities and a condo where they maintain the exterior of your building, you could easily be paying $1,000 a month for HOA fees.
Yeah, not more.
Yeah, exactly. So HOA fees are a big part of consideration when it comes to the cost of homes. Let's go back and talk about some fun things that people want to know about. How about shopping and dining?
Oh, there's so many places to shop and dine here. We have downtown Sarasota, University Town Center, St. Armand's, just to name a few in this area.
And a lot of our restaurants aren't chain restaurants, which is something that I really, really like. It's very authentic. There's just a variety.
I agree.
And I mean, we have a little bit of both, don't get me wrong, and some of my favorite restaurants still can be some of the chain restaurants that you know and love. However, the options to find the locally owned dining facilities and establishments is just out of this world. I think you'll never get bored or you'll never run out of places to try when it comes to food, dining here in Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch. And shopping, oh my gosh.
So many great areas to shop.
It is, it really is. So that part is really fun. And also we are talking about how to meet people, but it's beyond that. There's so much just to do, theater, museums. What's some of your favorites to check out?
I love Selby Gardens. It's a beautiful botanical garden. I also love the Ringling Museum. That is so fun. And Jungle Gardens. You can feed the flamingos and the alligators. There's so much to do here, even just on the water, boating, jet skiing, anything you can think of.
Yeah.
So much to do.
It's really true. There is so much to do here. So this really is the questions that we get asked almost daily.
Yes.
And we wanted to address some of those questions with you. There's a lot of pros, there's a lot of cons, and there's some myths out there about moving to Sarasota. So if we can answer any of your questions, we are here to help. Remember, when it comes to buying or selling real estate,
Always work with a neighborhood expert.